perspectives, different views, one voice.
Welcome to the LDN Perspective. As you can see by my attire, today's episode is going to be very interesting. We're going to be talking about instant gratification and the drip. I know you're liking the drip, innit? Call me Mo LV. Yeah. So today I'm joined here with my hosts. I got my boys here. You want to introduce yourself quick?
Hi, I'm Kojo.
Ciao. Yeah, you got Cam here.
I'm Ali.
So on this episode, we're basically just going to be talking about instant gratification, the way in which our community spends. As you can see, I got my Louis V, got my LV glasses, I got my 16 karat, you know, the ring, everything. And is this really intelligent spending? I mean, could we be doing better? What could we be doing? So first of all, I'll just open it up to the other host, my co-host. If you guys want to add your bits, tell me what your thoughts are, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, no, I think it's an interesting conversation because thinking our communities is something that we've always kind of not necessarily struggled on. It depends on your viewpoint in this world. But I think if we view ourselves as in building wealth, then it's very important that we kind of spend accordingly. I think one thing that I've found out, especially when I was kind of like in uni or for my own personal life, is a lot of the times, obviously, like, how do I even put it? It's nice to have good stuff in it. There is a kind of like a prestige that is built within the brand. There's kind of like an idea that if people see you wearing these kind of stuff, there's a perceived kind of thinking that, you know, you have money or you have something or you aspire to something. And I think sometimes we buy it in order to buy into that kind of ideology, because we want to feel worthy. We want to feel like, you know, we have kind of, we are, I don't know, I was going to say about, we've kind of like gone up another level, because the idea is if I'm walking down the road and you see me wearing all these things, then the thinking you're going to have in your mind is that I do have money, because if I don't have money, how can I buy such expensive garments or car or whatever it is? So I think sometimes we buy into the ideology and we don't think about the long-term impact that has on us regarding building wealth for the next generation.
I hear you on that, definitely. What's your thoughts on this, Cam?
I mean, personally, are we looking for instant gratification? Depends on who you're speaking to be honest with you. I don't think you can really generalize it and place it on a mass group. It really does depend on who you're speaking to. I mean, there is a sense of some people feel that they need to keep up with the Joneses, so to speak, in terms of like buying into certain brands, buying certain things. But there are some people who understand the difference between a want and a necessity. And there are people who can say, yeah, I want these sort of things, but I understand it's not a necessity, and they can distinguish between them, so they can live without certain things. Whereas there are others that aren't able to make that difference, and as a result may buy into certain brands, may buy into certain things. And that doesn't necessarily apply to everyone. Some people actually just generally have the money and want to go and spend it. So yeah, I think that's my thought on it for now. It's very, very brief, but yeah, I would say I don't think we all buy into, I don't think there's a sense of instant gratification.
Okay, I hear you. What's your thoughts, Ali? I mean, how do you feel about it all?
I think Cam kind of like just lay it out down really nicely. But however, if your pocket can afford it, why not? But what I've noticed is that a few handhold, like personally, for me personally, I don't spend in that amount of money to spend on brands that, first of all, do not represent me, and second of all, do not understand the value of me walking in there as a black person, as a black man, because I'm a very proud black man, to go there and buy. First of all, if I'm buying the yearly out, year in and out, and I'm not getting like a reward card, or I'm not getting or a gift, or I'm not getting a credit to say, you know what, appreciation, I won't go there. So for me, the reason why I will probably against it is because that's not really my kind of cup of tea anyway, as a black man, because I'm more the good thing about me, I'm more in a hipster side. So for me to be having those kind of brand is not really my cup of tea. So I think Cam kind of like lay it out in a way where it's necessary. But if your pocket can handle it, but meaning what I mean by if your pocket can handle it, if you know you've got asset, if you know you're comfortable, if you know you've got a good job, why not? Because at the end of the day, we enjoy looking good as a black person, as a black community, as a black individual. We have to look good regardless of you have the money and then invest it in something else. If you wanna dash your min, then do it. There's no problem. So for me, I'm gonna leave it out there for now in that kind of sense. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Now I hear you. I mean, it's crazy because basically at the moment I know that there's about 8.3 million people in the UK that are over indebted, and 22% of the UK have less than £100 in savings. So there is definitely some kind of issue and mentality going on around in terms of how we spend. I mean, definitely when you watch TV, you see all the guys on there and you see them in their Louis V, their stuff. That's something we all desire. That's all what we want. But I mean, in terms of attitude, is that something that we should be trying to go towards? Or are there more priorities that we should actually be focusing on? And do we judge each other too much sometimes? As in, if you see that person in this and that, it looks good, whatever. Those are the kind of things I'm trying to get out of the conversation in that kind of sense. Yeah, I mean, Coach, is there something you want to say?
Yeah, so just getting back again, I guess the clarification I was trying to make is not about the kind of the price of the items that you're buying, but it's about spending for the sake of spending. And I was then trying to touch on about the kind of society that we live in and the impact of the media, especially when it comes to the black culture that we consume a lot of the times from America and how that fits in, you know, watching videos and all these kind of stuff that we aspire to be. A lot of the times this dictates our spending habit. And I'm just trying to say, I think the point I was trying to say that I don't normally go out looking like this. And this is no statement, you know, I am part and parcel of the habits that we've all kind of been ingrained in when it comes to, you know, buying that expensive item here or there. But then I guess this conversation, what I just wanted to understand from the collective is that maybe we need to shape our thinking. Even if we do have the money, there is time. I feel like in the walk of life or in kind of what we're trying to do, especially for the next generation, there is a time for everything. And I feel like maybe where we are now is not time for us to be spending ridiculously on things that we don't necessarily need for now, and maybe use that money to build generational wealth for our next generation, I guess. I guess that's kind of like what I'm kind of thinking at the moment.
Can I just step in? I just want to add to what you said, Coach. So like from what I get from what you're saying, it's not really a question of buying into certain brands. It's you're overspending on certain things, and whether it's a name brand thing or whether it's like a high street thing, or even doesn't even have to be clothes. It could just be you spending. You could be buying a Peugeot over a Mercedes, those sort of things. It's that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that quickly, I think sometimes we set ourselves to fail, especially when it comes to the young generation, because you could have some mothers that are working class and they might be buying that £120, £160 trainers for their kids. Now, we fully know that you cannot, in regards to your means of income, you cannot support that going forward. So that child reaches the age of 16, 17, where they need to kind of start fending for themselves. And then they realize that this is all kind of false. Like, I can't really live up to these kind of stuff. These tracksuits that I wear every day, all these kind of stuff. So I feel like we have to be very careful regarding our spending habit that we teach, especially because we're doing it as well. And the next generation are watching us. We teach them how to spend accordingly, because sometimes they have this false sense of kind of, and they have a false sense of entitlement as well, which comes in the gratification, where it's like that instant gratification of, I want it now, you know. You might be walking down with your son, you know, you walk into Foot Locker, mate, we're window shopping here, mate, we're not meant to be buying anything. And they might see something and it's like, I want it now. And just making them understand that sometimes it's about building up to buy something rather than seeing something and spending. I forgot what they call in marketing, but there is a terminology for it.
Can I just say something? So yeah, I mean, I think you're right. I think it is about understanding the relationship with money, and I guess I remember I read the richest book of the richest man in Babylon, that book, and it had 3 specific rules about money. Anyone that has money needs to understand these 3 rules, or otherwise you can't prosper in terms of your relationship with money. And the first rule was you need to understand how to make money. So that, that could be through doing a job, making, hustling, whatever the case may be, understanding how to get money. Then you have to understand how to keep it. And that's just through understanding saving how, a certain amount of what you're paid, or being able to keep it. And then the third part is understanding how to use it. So that could just be knowing how to put it in investments, knowing how to allow it to grow. Those are the 3 key things you have to understand in order to create a prosperous relationship with money. And that's not taught enough, and so we fall into this trap of consumerism, where it's just about overspending and not understanding that there is a power in terms of having a positive relationship with money, whereas some people don't really take too much of that into account.
So in the sense of like the money wealth and what you lot were saying, there's also there's the aspect of like perception. So there's a lot of people that will sort of, their perception is that if they've got they're wearing something expensive, it's supposed to represent that's their form of disposable income. So they've got everything else they're doing, but it's their form of disposable. And it's sort of a way that people, so we see it all the time. It's sort of where people recognize it, and it's their recognition of, okay, cool, that person's got more money than this person, or if that person's current or up to date. Now, that runs into the fact that it can also sort of obscure the fact that some people actually like quality, okay? So there's times where, I'm sure we've all had it, that we've bought something cheap and we've had to buy it twice. Where if we bought something just a little less than buying it twice, but a little more expensive than it, okay? It's the quality aspect of it. And that's why some other people buy in the sense of the quality part of it. In a sense of keeping the wealth, I get what Cam was saying just there, that you need to know the principles of it. You need to know how to make it, how to keep it, and how to use it, because there's different sort of mathematics that people can use where, let's say they're stepping up or upgrading because they need to, sometimes you have to keep up with the times just so it makes it easier for yourself. Because let's say if you're looking at technology, keeping up with the times means buying something a little more expensive means that it's more future proof, keeping up with the times in a sense of you don't need to keep repairing it and buying things like that. But I get where Cameron was saying, because now, I don't know who, I think it was you saying it as well, Cod. You were saying that the youth now, they're looking at us and thinking that it's okay that they're living with £170 trainers, and when it comes to their time to sort of fend for themselves, they don't know how to do it. Or there's also other youth where they're still trying to study, but at the same time, their competition of maybe, let's say girls, yeah, because we're all men, like there's men in here, like we all know there's certain times we did things in the sense of attracting the other sex or attracting the sex that, do you get where I'm coming from? And it was used in the sense of it was the disposable income that you could show on what you're wearing. Nothing to do, no one knows where you live, no one knows anything like that. It's even worse now with social media, because people only show the good parts. They'll never actually show the other parts. And it's like, I think as a whole, everyone's stimulating it, so it's getting even worse. But in the sense of, as Mo was saying, the stats saying that there's people with less money as savings, it's mad, but it's the truth. And I don't know how the best way of saying like how we can get our youth to understand it, but I get where Cam was saying that we need to teach them the principles, because I know the principles, but that's me knowing through age and everything, but it's never actually been said to me in that sense of make it, keep it, use it, boom.
Mosai, are you ready to chip in?
Yeah, I'll chip in. Hey, everybody. I think I'm going to be a bit controversial and just say, insult our own. I think black people, to a degree, are completely lost. I think, and if I go into the history of things, I don't necessarily blame the black community. I think, fundamentally speaking, when you look at a lot of where these things derive from, is one where in Proverbs, it says something very powerful. And it's crazy how long Proverbs was written. It says the rich act poor and the poor act rich. And when I read that, it kind of blew me away, because I think that's exactly what's happened. I think when you look at the black community, we've been made poor by the Western construct of money and how it works in the Western world. So in order to have some form of self-worth, worth, forgive me for saying that, you find a lot of people buying designer items to feel better about themselves. I'm sorry, I do agree that you do buy some designer items because of the quality, but I refuse to accept that as the rationale as to why it's done in a mainstream perspective. So for example, yeah, I bought 1-2 belts because I like the leather is better. You don't change as often. But you're buying a t-shirt worth 100 and 200 pounds. I refuse to believe the quality of that t-shirt is gonna be that good above and beyond Zara compared to how often you're gonna actually use it. And even Da Vinci, one of the brands, they even say summer 2019. So some of these brands are even labeling what term, what season that design was made in. So you can't wear it again. So I don't believe necessarily that it's purely because of quality. I think a lot of black people use it as a form of self-validation. I think a lot of black people unfortunately haven't got. So therefore, the only way we can prove ourselves to be of substance is to, in essence, buy designers, to buy nice things. I think fundamentally, personally speaking, if you're driving a car and you can't afford that car 3 times over, 4 times over, the car's too expensive. I feel I get the point on technology, but I was talking to somebody, I know one person want to buy a MacBook Pro. To do what? Surf the web. You don't need a MacBook Pro. Just understand, there's loads of technologies that are capable of fulfilling your needs without actually killing your bank balance. And then you then go into the idea that when you become a consumer and you're always spending your money, you are never able to actually generate wealth. Generating wealth means you need money to make money. It's as simple as that. So the trap that people fall into to buy things so others can look at them to feel good about themselves is stupidity of the highest class. You're impressing people that you don't know. You're impressing people that tomorrow they don't know you. And then you're going home to suffer. Doesn't make sense. I think black people fundamentally need to start operating under a clear sort of methodology. If you can't buy the things several times over while still having disposable income, don't buy it. Simple as that. If that item takes a proportion over 20% to 30% of your income that month, is too expensive for you. I think when you go to black clubs, it's disappointing. You see all of the expensive cars in the world. But when you look at black people as wealth in proportionate, you know, can't afford it. So we just need to wake up and stop. I don't buy the whole quality stuff. You can buy a 2010 BMW. It's still gonna be fit for purpose. Just understand, you're buying a brand new. And then when you then go into investing, and God, you know I'm heavy on the investment part. To invest, you need money. And if the black community actually knew how much money you can make from investing, you won't actually want to spend your money on rubbish. Because now that £300 Gucci belt actually cost you £1,000 if you knew how to invest. You're not just losing the actual money you're spending on the item. You're losing the potential of what that money can actually make you. And that's where people don't understand. And I think, fundamentally speaking, until we start reflecting what we want, we're deceiving ourselves. Because it's easy to say, oh, we need to change. But yeah, you're still driving the nice car. Ask yourself the question, can you afford that car 10 times over? We need to start having some very, very strict guidelines. Because when I was at work, and I'll come off on this point, I was at work one time, and then everybody around me, they must have been on 6 figures. And I'm looking at them in the clubs. They weren't popping bottles. They weren't. They weren't Gucci'd up. They weren't. They had their Gap, Zara, sort of, maybe 1 or 2 of them might have a little shine, but generally speaking, no. They didn't drive the flashiest car. They drove like a Polo. But these people had £100,000 equity in their accounts. They own £100,000 per annum, and they had about £100,000 equity in their property and £100,000 savings. But when you look at us, you go to our clubs. I'm sorry, like I know some of these people. You're broke. Why are you spending? Why are you on the table for? You can't afford it.
Can I add into that? You know, I don't know what to say, but definitely love your comment, because that's exactly what I'm trying to say to the individuals, and especially us Black community. This is the problem that I want always. You know what? I think fundamentally everyone's tapping to what the problem is. I think when we were young, we wasn't taught how to create this kind of mindset. I think that's what it is. I think our age, unfortunately, we have been sucked, and unfortunately we've been drained. But I don't understand, because exactly what you're saying, Ozzy, yeah? Am I pronouncing your name right, by the way?
Osai. It's cool. I'm used to
Okay,
various.
Ozai. All right, Ozai. So I don't understand. You have, for example, in this group here, maybe there's 10 of us. We will go to a club, right? And we want to buy a drink. Obviously, this is the funny thing, how our mind works. We go to a club, yeah? We know we want to have a VIP, right? And what we do, we all of us will chip in £100 each, £100 each. But then guess what? When you chip in £100 each, yeah, from 10 people, how much money is for just one night? And it's just a water that you've drank, and you're gonna wee and then what? Gas from it. And then the next day, you're back to normal again. So if you take that money, right, from each other, and then you say, guys, let's come together, let's invest, right? And then do something with that money. That money that you've invested and you spend that for one night and you invest that, you can make triple and even more of that money. And if you want to drink off your life, you can do that. But we don't think like that. Collectively, we don't think like that. Exactly what you just said, you just nailed. This is my problem. That's why I find that sometimes when I'm with a group, or I find I want to talk to some certain people, this is why I get frustrated, because my understanding of what I want to, I have a vision. I have a vision in 5, 10 years, 15 years. I know what I want to do. But please, I pray to God that if the same vision that I have, all the Black people have that year, we won't be sitting here and talking. We will be doing something crazy. But we don't. We just want to show off today. And tomorrow, even right now, if I'm showing off today and then tomorrow, I might end up dying. You're not going to remember me that I'm showing off. That's nothing. This is even perfect example, Hush Puppy. The guy's making millions of pounds. Why can't you just go low and keep quiet and do what he needs to do? That's a bloody expense. That's a perfect example there, that what we do when we have money, we don't even know what to do with it. Instead of just having an asset, we spend for no reason. And look at him now, right now.
I just want to add, because before you go, Edward,
Yeah.
what I was going to say is that we have to be careful about generalizing, because you can't generalize every single Black person. You cannot do that. Bro, I've been exposed to Black millionaires, and I know how they behave, and not all of them just spend. A lot of them do understand the difference, and a lot of them do understand the concept of money and how to deal with it. I mean, like, one of the firms I worked in, one of the lawyers, this guy had a mansion in Spain. He had his own brewery. This guy practices as a lawyer, and he definitely had this guy was definitely a millionaire, but you would not be able to tell from instantly looking at him. He didn't, he wasn't the kind of person that would just, spend to show off or that sort of stuff. And he certainly understood the concept of, making money, keeping it, and being able to use it. And so what I'm trying to say, Ali, is that I think we need to be mindful of like generalizing, because I think at the same time it's also down to what you're exposed to as well. Like I said, I've been in a situation where I've seen people, black people with money, who haven't just spent. I don't know if you have, but I feel like there are people in this group that have as well. So we can't make that generalization, and that's why I think you have to say it depends on the person.
No, don't get me wrong. Sorry to cut you on that. Don't get me wrong. I'm not generalizing. I'm just saying the mass of us as a Black community, we do this, and individually we do that. I'm not saying, I'm not generalizing. That's all.
Can I just step in there quickly, please? Because I think Cam is right. We can't generalize. You have to understand, that as human beings, instant gratification is just part of human nature. We have a short period of time on earth, and we try to do everything as quickly as we can. Number two, we have an emotional attachment with things. You have to understand, marketing is a billion-pound industry where companies research how people's psychology, the way they think. You go into a shop, there's certain placements in where they put goods. You're fighting already instantly. Just moving on from that, you have to understand, we in the West, I understand when you talk about blacks, but you have to think about the UK. We have not been in this country for a very long period of time to start thinking in terms of you have to understand our parents, when they came, the idea was probably to work and go back home to their own country. So the idea of staying in this country and trying to get assets and stuff like that probably didn't play in their mind. It was more about building houses back home and maybe one day going over there with their kids and stuff like that. So there's that aspect. But number two is a lot of us are working class people. So it's not just the black community, the white people also, working class white people face this thing where they want to be wearing Gucci. Look at Only Ways Essex. You've got a lot of them who are not actually rich, but they're wearing designer brands that maybe we don't know of because we're just so fascinated by Gucci and Louis Vuitton. But they wear other brands that we might not be, but they're just quite expensive. So I think it's a working class mentality that we have generally, and obviously the black community in the UK are majority in the working class area. Just get onto the point. The reason why some of us have actually built an understanding with money by reading and going out there and seeking information is maybe through meeting other people who think differently. It's not in the working class community, a lot of it is about survival rather than thinking about creating generational wealth. So we can't be basically what I'm trying to say, we can't be too hard on ourselves by blaming or generalizing us saying that we want to show off all the time, because that is a working class mentality and it's something that we have to shift from, but it takes time. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
But you have to understand we're up against a billion-dollar industry where marketing is a massive factor from the moment a baby is born, what they're bombarded with, to when you die. And that's just a mindset that we have to sort of change, and our emotional attachment as well. Because even investing in stocks, when it goes up and it goes down, it's based on emotional reaction.
Yeah, no, I think it's really good what everyone's been touching on, especially the whole element of us more focusing on being less consumers and more producers. And I also kind of liked the comment that Edward made in regards to our parents. And I do take in consideration the term, the element of generalizing the black community and how there is the odd people that are millionaires and know how to spend and know what they're doing. But my focus mainly unapologetically is on our community as a whole. And as a whole, what you'll find, especially here in London, the UK, if we're doing a London perspective, is a lot of us are either first or second generational immigrants. And as Edward mentioned before, you'll have parents whereby they'll come here and they'll try raise their kids, whatever, but they're thinking about back home. So they're not investing much about here at home in the UK, but more else where they want to return to retire. And the problem with that is you've now got a generation of children whereby they're not fully being integrated in the community here and understanding how to save, invest, and spend. And in terms of the parental side of things, I know Edward mentioned the Only Ways Essex show. I don't know if everyone's ever really actually watched the difference between Only Ways Essex and Made in Chelsea, and the difference in terms of the people and the individuals, whereby Made in Chelsea may have people that are more from generational wealth, and they may not be in the whole Gucci and spending and whatever, because they kind of have a upbringing and understanding in terms of spending, whereby those that have come across new money may not necessarily be that responsible in their spending. So I think a lot of the time it's how you're brought up. I know I had a good conversation with a good friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about how he concluded that financial literacy for some people is a maturity. So for example, you'll get Jay-Z that was in gold chains or whatever at the beginning of the years when he's come across new money, and then now he's a lot more wealthy. You'll see that he's not in all those flashy things as much no more. He's more responsible in how he spends. but I don't necessarily put that to solely maturity. A lot of it really is your upbringing and mentality and how you're taught to spend. I don't really feel, as a lot of parents, I don't think I never really had with parents an actual good conversation in how I should be spending, how I should be using my money or wealth, and the why behind it. Sometimes parents will say, oh no, just save your money. You're not given the context. I feel when people act a certain way, you really need the context and how you're trying to do things. So that's kind of my kind of interjection on it in that sense. There is elements of coming from first, second generation immigrants. And then you've also got those that may have been here in the UK for a lot longer, the Windrush generation. In terms of the social class, they haven't had the actual education in terms of schools. You don't really get taught how to spend and use your money. And I feel that's another big aspect. I know Asai earlier talked about how when you spend, you should invest it in self. In economics, we call that opportunity cost, so the opportunity of spending on something. But I've kind of delved into a lot of different things. I know there's some people that wanted to add a few things in there.
Right, man. Thanks, guys. First of all, yeah, a lot of interesting comments. I see, all right and all very broad. And I think, Mo, just to touch on a lot of what you're saying, it kind of, for me, it brings it back to three things. First and foremost, let's start with the beginning, which is education. But not education as we look at it to be. So coming from working class, generational wealth, all of these things, it starts from people from working class backgrounds, irrespective of, you know, race and gender, although predominantly Black here, and we'll get to that. They go to public school. The public school education is designed to teach people to be workers. Like, you need to deep this, like, serious. Like, the reason we keep saying, oh, we weren't taught about money, but what you don't understand is that there are different institutions that will teach you about money. It's just we're not privy to those institutions. Private school education, is it now? Yeah, it teaches you how to be a boss. Like, you're taught how to be, like, it teaches you how to generate a business and get employees. And if you actually understand, and if you deep it, if you look at everyone, if everyone was trying to be a boss, where are the workers? Do you actually understand? Like, you actually need you need workers. And we can take this back to the animal kingdom. Like, you know, you have the worker bees, you've got your worker ants, and that's how the kingdom is built. So you actually need people to not have the ambition. And reason why a bigger lack of ambition comes is because lack of education. You know, through lack of education, your people will perish. Because if I don't know that if I think that this is my ceiling, I won't aspire to go above here. Do you understand? So it's a case of, so if this is all I'm known, this is all I'm being taught, private, public, and this is the private education, then all it is that our parents teach us to be good workers, do well, and work hard. Yeah, work hard is what you always hear in the Black communities, because it's about how we can slowly work our way up to the manager job or this job. Whereas our counterparts, our wealthier counterparts, they're being taught, how do you start to grow and scale a business and start to get those people that want to work hard to grow your business. And this is this is the whole education piece, and this is why when it comes to all of these things, when we're discussing money, it's just a lot of it is a lack of knowledge. You talk about financial literacy, which I'm going to go into really quickly, but it's just really understanding that the fact of why people aren't taught about tax, people aren't talking about investment, these aren't things that have been taught to us, and these aren't things that are to be taught to us, because we are taught to be workers. And as long as we are taught to be workers, we're fine. And even when we're discussing, I think Cam mentioned, like coming across these Black millionaires that all of these things that they don't, exhibit the traits. It's because they've gone through the private school education. I can bet you any money that guy that owns a brewery and all this kind of stuff, 9 out of 10 times, he's had some form of private education, that has shown him or heightened his horizon or exposed him to a new way of thinking. And then, the second thing that I wanted to talk to is self-realization, self-actualization, like self-worth. A lot of people, so it varies. You do see people that are buying for, we talk about quality and all this kind of stuff like that. But when you haven't had something for so long, just getting a glimpse of it, or to be able to touch it, it's crazy. Like when I first started working, the first thing I wanted to aspire to was a Rolex. That was it. Like, I didn't want a property. I didn't want a car. I wanted a Rolex. Why? Because I saw Rolex as being a level of esteem. I saw that people, in my mind, people that wear Rolex are, have amassed a certain type of success, certain type of wealth. And this is what, well, for me and my generation, bearing in mind, growing up in the States, where we all lived in the States, no one, owned their house, yeah, but there were Range Rovers and there were all these nice cars now, yeah, like all these flashy cars there for days. But because you've got people that want the car, want the money, want the wealth, but they don't aspire to move out of the hood. Because for them, they've made it. That's hood rich. Like there's this, but then in terms of to be amongst your peers in whether it's your Zara and all this kind of stuff like that. The reason why you stop thinking that you need it is because once you know that you can amass it in a certain type of way, you don't require it anymore. So let's say it's girls. Like if like there's certain guys that, so we all know we've got those thirsty friends now, yeah, that any sort of girl, any sort of invitation, they're on it. But then there's the other guys now that because they've had that, they've seen that in so many different ways, they don't want it no more. It's just the same thing, yeah, from a generational wealth, like our parents, I've seen money. Do you know what I mean? So I'm looking at these guys thinking, you think this is money? This isn't money. So therefore, so the things that you think you desire in having this money, I don't need to desire those things because I already have a self-assuredness in myself that, you know what, it far surpasses this. So yeah, so one, and I'm gonna wrap up with the last. So yeah, so what was the last thing? And the last point I wanted to make in terms of just goals, in terms of self-awareness. When we're talking about generational wealth, everything that you guys have said now, yeah, is true. But one of the biggest things that it comes about is collaborative working, collaborative thinking. We talk about the black pound within our community. The black pound, we talk about how the Jewish pound, like stays within the community for a number of weeks before it leaves the community. Whereas the black pound is a number of minutes, a couple of hours at best, and it's out of the community. And it goes again because our identity in terms of what we know, what we understand, what we believe, all these things are, so we're looking for it in other, in areas outside of our own community. And we talk about, look at Asians and all these people that own houses, because they're also immigrants. But what you realize is that they've got a very, very clear way of working. A year, so yeah, last point, a couple of years ago, I was coming home here, Uber driver, and I'm talking to an Asian guy, and he's just telling me he just bought his house. I was like, right, how'd you do it? He's like, oh, okay. So there was 30 couples, and we were each committing £1,000 a month. And every month, yeah, we were raising £30,000. And every month, yeah, then we would give that £30,000 to a couple. So here again, so hear what I'm saying, right? So I'm saving £1,000 a month. But imagine everyone on this call is now saving £1,000 a month, and we are all investing in £1,000 a month. And then, you know what? January, all the money, all this money goes to Mo. Mo, you go set up your business. Yeah, February, all the money goes to Ali. Ali, you go set up your business. March, all the money goes to Code, set up your business. But we all invested. So whereas if we take 12 months now, yeah, 12 months where I could have saved £12,000 by myself, or we could have made, you know what I mean? So we could have dispersed, 120K, amongst the 12 of us. That's how and everyone was able to have now, yeah, a 30K deposit for a house. It's just about the collaborative working and understanding that, I can go into other aspects because that's what Cornerstone, which is the Black Investment Club, which we created to invest in Black and diverse businesses. It's 20 people investing 50K over 2 years. Now it sounds crazy, but if I tell you now that we've got £800,000 that we've invested in Black and diverse businesses, it sounds crazy, but this is what it is. And it's about a knowledge, it's awareness, it's education, and all of the things above. So yeah, but that's what I just wanted to.
Wanna add into that, yes, quickly, yeah. Stephen, he's definitely just hit the nail because what I understand also from what you guys are saying, it is unfair that we're on the bottom, right? It's unfair. So maybe I think what is everyone saying collectively now is that we are probably the second or the third generation. I think this is the reason why we're in this kind of this level. Because the reason why I am exclusively bringing that point up is because if we were in the fourth or fifth generation, I think our mindset will be more higher. Maybe so, but the positive side of it now, because we're seeing this now that is happening. Because first of all, we are the highest consumer in all of the race. we are the highest consumer. So if perhaps we can be the bottom consumer, maybe all of this, we will be more, we will have a lot of asset, we will know what to do, we will have more businesses. Because I give you this example, I'm around Asian people, like Japanese, Indian, but when you see them dress here, it's totally different. They don't have to wear Gucci. They don't have to wear Gucci t-shirt. They don't have to wear Gucci belt or show that kind of asset that they've got. But you see them, they've got a shop, right? And you go to their house, they bought the house already. Then you see their driveway, they've got a probably 2020 plate. But as soon as you see them, their appearance is totally different. And another point I wanted to make is that I don't think that us as individually, we are ready to do exactly what Stephen have just mentioned. Because, for example, there's probably 20 of us in this group here, and each one of us are putting aside £1,000. The reason why I say that passionately is because myself, or I can speak for myself, I want to create my own asset with my family. This is where the problem is. Until I know with my asset, with my own family, the foundation is set, then I can take that and then say, okay, guys, I've got extra money on the side. And then I'll put that, then I will help. But because, as I already raised before, that we're the second, third generation, this is the reason why we're sinking in the situation. But it doesn't mean we cannot still do it, because it's an excuse, because somehow we still make extra money. Or somehow, as what Hassan says, that we want to go and buy a Gucci belt that's worth £1,000 or £800. So why don't you take that money and put it aside and say, oh, guys, because I've got a group that we are saving money every month. And then our end of this year, what we're looking to do as a group, we're looking to put, each of us looking to put at least 3K each side. And then from that 3K, we're looking to do something as a group. It's our first investment. So we don't know the outcome of it, but definitely for us to even to think of doing that, that is a positive side. So that's why I want to go forward and say, no, let's see what the outcome is. But generally, in general, I believe it will be a positive outcome because all of us are hungry. So I'm not saying for us not to spend. We love spending because it's in our nature. Black people love to spend. But I think we need to understand how to spend, than to just spend freely. That's what I think.
Yeah, so just to add to that, a lot of the times when we do these comparisons as well, we have to kind of look inward and say, how come we've not been able to aspire to such things? And I say that because, for instance, you have to understand trust. I think Black people innately do not trust each other. So that's one thing. You have to look at the sacrifice that you have to give. So for instance, apart from that example that Stephen gave, I also know families that they all live in one house and they kind of build wealth by, chipping in every month and trying to, once they get a certain amount that could set up that kind of deposit, then that one family member will move out and acquire property. And the reason I mention sacrifices because a lot of the time, kind of independence, having your own, doing my own, yes, all those kind of stuff. And so I think that then kind of it's a bit challenging for us to do that. And the other thing I saw is culture. I think for Black people, we need to understand one thing, culture and tradition. A lot of these races that we may compare ourselves to have not been through this kind of systematic kind of colonization when it comes to racism. Obviously, India have been through that, but it wasn't on the level that Africa went through, for instance. And also just touched on that, you go to America and you look at the civil rights movement. When you're looking at Martin Luther King and Black people literally walking into white establishments to say that they want to spend their money there, that had detrimental effects in a sense of that Black dollar. I think someone mentioned about how that Black pound, how long it takes for it to stay within our communities. Because from historical facts, we knew that we were not given we didn't have the vacuum to spend our money how we chose to, right? So then it went on to this kind of thing of, okay, I am a free man. I can choose to spend my money anywhere. And then it came around with this movement of Black people trying to fight for their rights by trying to fit within these kind of communities. So you walk into a white store and you want to show them that you can afford that. Then obviously that led, when we're looking at the outcome of that kind of events, that's led to where we are now, where we want to buy into that sense of, I am free now. We want to buy to that sense of I have money now. We want to buy into that sense of forget the class. I'm able to spend as much as you now. I'm able to frequent your stores. And that what that means is that the money that we acquire just really does not stay within our communities. So there's been obviously conversations where people, you could call me extreme, but people have said those civil rights movement was kind of detrimental to Black people because, you know, people could talk about, I forgot the name of that, Black Wall Street, name of
Greenwood.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Oklahoma.
Greenwood.
Stephen mentioned it, and we could see what that was having on Black people. So I think we have to really kind of understand now, and I think just one point on what Stephen was saying about the education, and it's something I struggled with because I remember, for instance, when we were in uni, someone like Edward and Osai were doing all these kind of investments. But my mind was not there. I was caring about the car. I was working in TK Maxx. I wanted the gums. I wanted the Prada trainer. That's what my mind was thinking because people have touched on about the girls and all these kind of stuff. And at that time, that's what I was looking at. And I only wish that at that time I had that education that I have now. So I think a lot of the times I saw, these are kind of things. And for me, this conversation, I just want us to identify where this is coming from, right? Because this is coming from so many different places. When we're using the example of, let's say, our mom's generation, they actually invest. Whether they're investing in back home or not, they are actually investing. A lot of them save money. They save money. They might not buy, I remember my mom was taking, they're like, oh, Adidas, mate, got 2 stripes, is the same thing. That was Ascot back in the day, if anyone remembers. For her, she didn't care about these material stuff. I cared about that because I lived within that environment. And she didn't understand the impact that had on me. However, when we're talking about investment, they are able to save their money. It's just that they don't keep their money in this kind of environment. So if we are able to even understand how they are able to save money, that's the conversation I want to have because it's about having assets. Whether the asset is in Nigeria or the asset is in Ghana, it's still something to sell on and give to their children if the need be arises. You might never live, but that's not the point. The point I'm just to make here is that it's just about that investment and asset. And if raising, I need to go to Osai and come back to you if you don't mind. Osai?
Yeah, so I think, Carl, you said one point. So I kind of just don't agree with a lot of what people have said, if I'm honest with you. And I see it's just bullshit excuses, if I'm honest with you. So as you mentioned, the whole where our parents, this, that, the other, I think that's just an excuse. Because as you mentioned, my mum bought houses in Nigeria whilst working in the UK. So the psychology of sacrifice for progress is actually something that many of our parents were doing. Our parents were working 3 jobs. Makes sense? They endured more severe racism. They endured harsher times. And they progressed. They did because their investment was us to bring us here, to work the cleaner jobs, to work the security guards, to work all these jobs, to invest in us. But on top of that, they were also able to amount wealth to build. So I don't buy into that whole, oh, our parents, this, that's the other. Nah, brother. We as a generation have lost our brains. And I'm sorry, when I speak, please appreciate, I don't speak for everybody. No, I speak for the general population. Because if the general population weren't lost, we won't be having this conversation. So I refuse to accept, oh yeah, there's always an example. There's always an example of anything. Doesn't mean that that's the status quo. That means that's the norm. I fundamentally believe, without doubt, this generation is lost. Our parents weren't. It's a simple inferiority complex where Black people feel that they need to show excellence. And then when you mix that with the ability to lend credit and spend money that isn't yours. I've been on phone to people that owe 18 grand in debt. And I'm trying to help them refinance themselves, to reset themselves. And then what do they want to get extra money for? To buy another sofa for a house that already has a sofa that is already functional because they feel they need to cheat themselves. And another thing is, I don't believe in the partner schemes. I don't think they're necessary. So where I get the idea where you bring money together to collectively reach a height that none of you could achieve individually, I get that. Let's just say next year, Facebook are gonna, McDonald's, we all wanna buy a McDonald's restaurant next year. None of us can individually do that. So we have to put money together to quickly amass the wealth to buy the, I forgot what it's called, but to buy the license. That's one part. I get that. Franchise, that's the word, forgive me. I get that. But to say that the Asians, oh, I need to put £1 a month and then every so often we chip it out and then I buy my house. That only makes sense if I need to buy my house now. But if I have a goal of buying my house, this is all about discipline. And the reason why it will never work for the Black community is the same reason why you can't do it as an individual. Discipline. Because once you've chopped your money, you haven't actually got the fundamental discipline to keep doing it. That's why it will break. And that's why people now start ducking out and people are chasing people for money because the discipline wasn't there. I'm telling you, the discipline is there. You don't actually need anybody. Because what am I doing? I'm giving Kojo a grant every month. Am I getting interest from that? Is Kojo helping me flip down the stock market? No, I can do it myself. Why do I, no disrespect to anybody, why do I need you? Do you understand? If we all had the individual, because if we all have the ability, merged with the discipline, we fundamentally can do it ourselves. I'm not promoting individualism. I do promote unity when there's a purpose. But let's not wash ourselves and say, oh, the reason why we can't buy a house is because the Asians, they chipped in ABCD. No, the reason why we can't do it is fundamentally, we have not got discipline. We are too easily distracted by material goods that have no substantial wealth. Listen to me, I've spoken to too many people, and fundamentally speaking, and one girl, she just got a council house in Croydon, and then she said she wanted to buy a Range Rover Evoque. I'm like, babe, why you want to buy a Range Rover Evoque? Why do you start seeing something
What?
buy a Range Rover Evoque? I'm like, oh, but Sai, and it comes back to the same thing. I want to treat myself. People need to understand. One of my boys, Ivan, his dad said, yeah, it's not until you've done ABC, you can't treat yourself with nothing. We have to have the mentality. You need to have achieved something.
I want to, sorry, I know you're making your point. But I also just wanted to add to what you were saying as well. Like, I certainly agree with you on the point about discipline, and it's certainly a key to have discipline in terms of arranging yourself in terms of finances, especially when I look at like examples of like, I've got one friend who bought property. They bought property in Manchester, and this person was earning like 16K, earning 16 grand. And I think the idea with buying properties or investing money is people have this perception that you need to be earning a certain salary in order to save a certain amount, in order to invest. And this person was on 16K and was able to buy a property. I think they bought it with someone else who was on a similar salary. But the point is, they were able to discipline themselves in terms of being able to scope out that particular property, save, and have a deposit set aside in order to buy that particular property. I think another thing that's also key is also understanding the credit system, because I think a lot of us don't understand. I think there's an inability to understand how the credit system works and how that can affect you in many different ways. In terms of spending now could affect you like later on. And I think we have to understand how that particular system works. Because if you understand how to keep money and you understand the credit system, then you understand how to navigate and to prosper in terms of investing and going forward.
Bro, I couldn't agree on the credit thing. I think fundamentally speaking, learning how your credit profile works is more important than learning quantum physics or algebra or any of this other nonsense they teach us.
No,
because really, truthfully, in life, you just need to know what 1 + 1 is 2. Just stand. These complicated things, I got a calculator, I got Excel, I don't need to know it. I'm sorry. It's not, I got my calculator. Very rarely often am I going to be put on a spot where I have to do complex maths. But God will tell you, when you understand how your credit profile works, actually works, you realize your little beef with T-Mobile over £30, that beef that you have with them and you're not paying them the £30 is going to cost you grands, because when you're going to apply for financial products, your APR is purely based on your credit profile. And instead of you getting 3.something% on 10 grand, or let's say a grand, which is what, £3 something, yeah? But £30, no, what is it? £30 something on 1 grand, you're going to get 26%. So instead of costing you £30, it's going to cost you about £260 for the same amount of money. And I refuse to, but the reality of it is this: when you have the discipline to amount the wealth, you would then seek the knowledge of what you need to do with it. See, these things all come to discipline. My journey has been around where
I wanted to buy a Tesla, and I'll give you a prime example. And I really wanted to buy it. Like, I love the car. And I thank to God I didn't buy it. Why? Because I've been able to make a lot of money on investing with the money I would have bought a Tesla. And then you get to the stage, I swear to God, you get to the stage, people, that you don't actually really want to spend money like that no more. Because you know, it's an opportunity.
Asaya, I'm a bit conscious of time because we literally need to be wrapping up soon. So I want to try and get everybody to add in their little bits quickly. I know Stephen did want to say something next after you, Asaya, and he's been showing off his credit score to everybody, you know, stunting. Like,
what was it? What was the credit score? Did anyone see it?
I don't know. I saw. I think it was upside down.
Was that your credit score?
166. Was it 166?
I saw 991. I saw 991.
Was that what you saw? You saw 991.
Yeah.
No, that can't be possible because the highest score you can get is 999. So what are you talking about? What? You're telling me I'm sitting on this call, yeah, with 991 credit. Hold on, that must mean it's excellent. Oh my God. We're perfect. Anyway, guys, what do I know? I'm just on the call and I'm here to learn. But guys, look, the truth is, everything that you're saying is I agree, and because discipline first and foremost is all of these things. But again, I guess what the point I'm trying to make is, and to your earlier point, is for the purpose. What is the vision? What is the goal here? And actually, ironically enough, as much we're talking about spending and the whole deferred gratification, there's a great saying. It goes, the person who sows the seed, knowing that they won't be the one to sit under the shade, has only started to begin the meaning of the life, started to understand the meaning of life. So let me say it again. The person who sows the seed, knowing they will not be the ones enjoying the shade, has only begun to start to understand the meaning of life. Guys, generational wealth here is built over a large period of time, and it's done in stages. And exactly to our parents that have got the houses in Nigeria, Ghana, whatever it was, but it's like you start small and you build and you build. Even now, when we talk about myself, when, you know what I mean, so yeah, the salary is great, or I'm trying to take my kids to private school, I'm looking at my counterparts, and to a reason why they don't have or they don't need or they got the big houses, and I'm still in an apartment trying to get a big house and trying to get my kids to private schools, because they're not even paying for the private school fees. Their grandparents are paying for it. Do you understand what I'm saying? So my colleague's parents are paying for his children to go to school. We'll say, yeah, private school. And then he will pay for his grandchildren to go to school. Generational wealth is about how it moves forward now and taking away. One thing about our culture as well, we'll say, yeah, like, and it's something that we are learning, and Black people, is that we are raised to look after our parents, right? So what we're doing here, so our money is going backwards. So it's like, so I'm going forward to give the money back. Whereas in the Jewish community and all these other communities, the money is to be pushed forward. The thing is, like, so for your bar mitzvahs and all this kind of thing, and obviously we feel obliged to do it. We are proud to do it. Do you know what I mean? It's what makes us us. You know, we feel successful to look after mum and dad and siblings or what have not. But in doing so, is that when trying to span that generational gap, what makes it harder is because I can afford for my kids to go to, let's say, private school, but then, okay, but now can I also afford to get the big house in the right catchment area? And all of these other things that or the additional generation or the what do you call it, or the businesses that get this, and I guess Code, you had a point. It's about the pain, and again, this all comes down to the word discipline. It's a case of, look, I know why you do things. You know why you're saving. You know why you go to you're investing. You know why you don't do things anymore. At one point, mate, I had the flashy car. I did it all. Mate, I remember the times when all my boys were, you know what I mean? Like, we literally, guys, we put £100 together, not even for a booth, for a bottle of Cristal to just take pictures. I don't even remember what it tasted like. I got two sips. Now, in terms of that same money and the investments of it, I don't even like spending expensive things, because in my mind, I'm already thinking about, I can invest something that will give me the reoccurring income, and I can continue to buy it and buy it and buy it again. And this is the type of mentality. But again, this is all comes down to education, but then it's all applied, as I say, like, because there are people that know this stuff, but don't want to apply it. So look, faith without works is dead. So yeah, but discipline and all these things, they come into play. But to your point, you know, you can't save, there's no point, we can't save £1,000, yeah, but between us if there's no discipline. But what I'm saying is easier when we've all got a common goal and we can all align to it. Because now it helps you with accountability, it helps you with focus, and it helps you with discipline. It's kind of like a personal trainer. You know, there's some people that can go gym, yeah, bang it out, they don't need nothing. And then there's some people, yeah, that need to be told and helped and along the way and what to do. So that's what it is.
Yeah.
But it was 991. Sorry, it was 991 for the credit score, if anyone was asking. 991.
Sorry,
Yeah.
that was
Don't at me,
166, yeah? All right, cool. Thank you,
Don't at me, don't at me.
We are closing off soon. I don't know, Koja, if there was anybody else that you wanted to get inside, but we do kind of need to wrap up quickly. So if anybody does want to say something, try and keep it concise, please. Yeah, no monologues, no end of backstories. Let's just kind of make our point quickly, if possible.
Hi guys, thanks. So I'll try and keep it as concise as possible. And forgive me if this has already been talked about because I joined the call slightly late. But I think in general, everyone's consensus is probably the same, and I think we're all aligned in thinking the same thing. And the reason I say that is because we've all touched on very different little bits and topics. Like Ed talked about the advertising and marketing company being a multi-billion-pound industry. Mo touched on Made in Chelsea versus Towie. And there were interesting points that came out of that I just wanted to call out very briefly because I watch Made in Chelsea personally, and I've seen Towie. I don't follow it, but I watch Made in Chelsea. And I do know that they actually spend on luxurious brands. They may not wear the let's call it Bately branded items, but they do absolutely spend on luxurious brands. And I actually just wanted to go back to the invite, which was how can we stop the culture of spending, and move on to investing or saving. And the one thing that I wanted to call out of that was the idea that we actually need to stop spending, because when we really think about it, and I think briefly or in a roundabout way, Stephen or perhaps even Ali have touched on it and mentioned that we live in a certain system. For me, that's a capitalist system. Across the entire world, you might have a nation that positions themselves as socialist or communist or whatever, but at the core of it, every nation requires workers, managers. There's a hierarchy. So the idea that we need to stop spending, I think, whilst we continue to exist within a capitalist system, is impossible. It's never going to be achievable. So the connotation that we need to stop spending, I think, is not one that's going to work. However, I think everyone's touched on really great points so far in the sense that we need to move to a place where we own and circulate our pound more efficiently within the Black community. So spending for me is not a problem in any way, shape, or form. If you have it, absolutely spend, because there are how many people on this call? 16. If every single one of us owned a business, we would want customers to patronize us. Otherwise, we go out of business. Plain and simple. That is how a capitalist structure works. So if we advise people to stop spending, or we talk about spending as being a negative thing, then we're not really helping each other. We're not really talking about anything sensible from my perspective, really. And I think, moving on to a culture where we're circulating our pound or our money, our wealth, generational wealth, more within the Black community, definitely something that we need to start thinking more about. But in terms of spending, I don't see that as being a negative thing at all if you have it. Spending when you don't have it, however, then that's definitely something that I wouldn't advise anyone to be doing. But spending is not a problem for me, really.
Thanks, Ali wanted to come in.
What we seem to understand, this whole thing that we've been talking about, it's all good, but I've come to a realization, because I used to work in fashion industry for over 6 years. I've come to a realization that when you're buying Gucci or Louis Vuitton or higher brand, it's not about the quality. The quality does not make no sense, because those people, Gucci, the manufacturer is in India or in Portugal or part of China, part of the world, right? It doesn't make, because you have all these brands, you have all these big brands, they're LV, H&M, right? They're all in one group, right? What they do, all it is, they make the same batch, the same mass. All it is just a label. They just take it and put it, take it and put it. And then you get Primark, you get the lower division. You get Primark, you got Zara. They go to the same factory, guys. Just understand this. They go to the same factory. All they do is take the label and put it. Take the label and put it. So what you're buying is the name. It's not the design. It's not because that designer, or his name is Walla Halle, whatever his name is. It's not, you're not buying him. You're buying the brand. The brand. That is the brand that speaks. So if we understand, I've come to a realization that, okay, why am I buying this Gucci stuff? Even I had Gucci stuff. I give it to my cousin. He's a young youth. I said, he would need it more than I do. I go to lower division, like Album, like Margaret Harry, like Agnes B. Division that is not high, but there's still quality. You know your brand. You will know that that guy, he's wearing a good brand. That's all it is. Buying Gucci, Louis Vuitton does not make no sense. Whether or not we have to stop, it's not about even stop. As Habib said, we cannot stop spending, but know what you're spending your money into. That's all it is, period. There's no problem, because this Gucci, as what someone mentioned, next year's season, there's going to be a new collection. So what? Are you going to chase yourself for the next year collection? No, you cannot. Yes, you have to have quality pieces like classic, whereby you can pass it on to your children. It's called asset, right? Because there's certain Gucci bag, there's certain LV bag that you must have, that when you pass it on to your next generation, they will worth 10,000 or 20,000. Yes, that makes sense. But buying just ridiculously every single season because you want to go out, you want to spend. No, for me, I've come to agreement that to say, no, I'm not going to buy this brand. I'll go to lower division brand that suits my pocket. Whether or not I can afford it, I'm not going to buy it, because it doesn't make no sense to me whatsoever, because those brands do not appreciate me. Those brands, when I walk in, they will think that I'm going to steal. Those brands, when I walk in, they don't even give me a loyalty card. Those brands, when I walk in, they won't even give me a coffee or say, sir, oh, can I give you a water? No, because first of all, they've already discriminate me already. Say, you know what, this is a black guy. He doesn't have money. He doesn't look like he's going to have money. So why not? Why am I going to even appreciate them or anything? But if I come in wearing all Gucci, or I look like I'm very expensive, they're going to appreciate me. No, I think it's wrong mentality that we need to have. Once we start seeing those stuff, I think maybe we'll come to a realization. But I think someone mentioned it very importantly at this conversation. This generation is lost. I'm sorry to say that, but this generation is lost, because us that we know this is happening now, when we have our own children, we need to teach our children. We need to educate our children. Our children is the next generation after this. We need to teach them. We need to teach them the value. And then if you can afford it to go on private, do that. I think we need to teach our children. That's what I needed to add into that.
Cool.
Sorry, can I
Does anybody else want to come in before I close off quickly?
just a question to Ali, if I may. When and I think Osai raised the same point as well, which I have to say I wholly disagree with. When you say this generation is lost, at what point do we take responsibility for our generation being lost and start to educate them? Because Ali, just now you talked about the generation being lost, and then you moved on to education and knowledge transfer. If we're not doing that, then do we not take responsibility for the generation being lost as the leaders or the whatever of the generation?
Yeah, I understand your point. Let me add into that. The reason why I say the generation is lost is because children are having children. Does that make sense? Children are having children. Like, the reason why I tap into that, the children that are having children now, they're in a generation now where it's all about material stuff. So they're not going to learn how to teach their own children. Does that make sense? Because my parents, when I was young, my parents never teach me how to buy stuff, that material stuff. The reason why I was buying material stuff because of my community, because of my friends. I didn't learn from it from my own mom. My own parents, they were teaching me how to try to save. But as what Edward tapped into, it wasn't educated properly of how to save. They didn't put into the context of how to save properly. You just say save. And that was it. It was just a pause, save. They didn't break it down. These children are having children now. What they're doing, they're seeing all of these celebrities are making money, flossing money. They're not showing you how they're making it. So these children now, they're having their children. They're not showing them the fundamental of how to save or be educated enough. So that's the reason why I say this generation are lost, because our generation now in this circle, we understand the fundamental side, which is the foundation. We're going to teach our own children of how to save, not just say save. We're going to break it down. We know, we understand it. That's what I meant by that.
And just to add to that question that Habib asked, though, just before I go through the question, it's interesting some of the points that you mentioned, Ali, but I think during your kind of explanation, you did mention about your Gucci and passing it on to like your brother or your siblings or your cousins. And I'm wondering even if that is part of the problem, because if you're going to be passing something like that on, I wonder the psyche that you're kind of giving them, to be giving them brands that they can't really afford. But that's a conversation for another day. Let's just go through the comments a bit. We have Joe, and Joe agreed with a lot of the points that Stephen was making. I'm not sure, maybe it was to do with your credit score, Stephen, but a lot of the points that you were making. And Joe then mentioned that generally Black people equate success, status, and respect with design and flashy items. In addition to that, Black people have historically used money, wealth, and appearance as stepping stone. It's been taught to us by our parents after education: make sure you look good, your clothes are nice, hair nice, so that you could fit in or have a better chance. It's just right now in society, we have attached looking good to designer and luxury items. Joe also went on to add that we have to understand the role that Black celebrities have had on us. You know, when you go into like the hip hop, the flashiness, the cars, the jewelry, the women and stuff like that. So moving on, I think generally some of the points that Habib mentioned, a few people have said they were really quite good points regarding the spending habits, and that might not necessarily be a bad thing. Sam had a few comments around some of the points that Ali made, especially regarding the whole generation is lost. I think that's part of something that Habib chipped into also. And Sam went on to say we need to understand why people do what they do in order to help them. I guess this is really getting to the root cause of why we spend our money that way. And this applies to everyone on the planet. Saying this generation are lost is a lazy, irresponsible statement for people who are not willing to put in the work of helping others. I think then there was a few comments around that. Education and discipline is key. I think Edward wanted us to, maybe before we close this off, just to go through a few lists that could help people, because I think why we set up this kind of platform or why we have this conversation is always to impart knowledge. And clearly from what we've seen here, from the discussion we've had here, a lot of people are quite knowledgeable in this. So maybe some steps, so a few lists on what people have been able to do, and maybe just to kind of, give people a bit of a step up on what they need to kind of do next. I think that would be really quite useful.
Yeah, sure. I think Kevin wanted to say something quickly.
Everyone's been saying a lot of very good points, but I'd say it's difficult for someone to do something they don't know how to do. So that's why everyone was saying, well, a lot of people say it's the knowledge you've got to be exposed to. So I think Osai was saying, our parents came here and they sacrificed, they worked hard. So we can see that as a young generation, but we still don't know what we don't know. So I can see sacrifice, but I don't know what I need to do to get somewhere. So the knowledge part of your financial IQ is what you need, right? And that's the exposure. Someone else said about going to private schools, and that's where they'll learn how to do that. So I know a lot of other people that came from the hood that are in professional careers, and because they're with people who they work with who are exposed to this kind of knowledge, they then go on to do certain things as well and build financial wealth, right? Now, so what I was going to say is, to know what you need to do is expose yourself to mentors, books, knowledge, etc. And someone said, oh, what you were just saying, that we need to do something, we need to know how to do those things. So one of my mentors was talking about how you spend your money. So essentially, let's say you earn £1,000, just keep numbers brief. 50% of what you earn should pay for all your bills, should pay for your rent, your food, your travel, everything, yeah? So 50% should cover your necessities, yeah? Everything you have to pay for. The other 50% is broken into 5 parts. One is for tithing, so giving back, whichever way that may be. If you're religious, for example, yeah, so you get the idea. Another 10% is for saving. Another 10% is for investing. Another 10% is for just splashing, right? And the last 10% is for knowledge. So whether you want to buy books, pay for seminars, webinars, pay for mentors' time, etc. So basically, that's how you can measure how you're not overspending. So a lot of us have mentioned that we're spending too much, but it's very difficult to measure how much. So how much is overspending, you know? And you can relate that to when you go to rich neighborhoods, they'll have German cars, but they're not going to be the top of the range German cars. A lot of them are like middle range. And then you'll go to a hood and you'll see people have the same German cars, but they don't have the assets. So they know how to calculate what is overspending, the rich this is. So once you've got like an idea of how much you can spend, i.e., for example, like using the formula there of 10%, every month you've got 10% to splash. You can splash out wherever you want because like someone said before, we're all emotional, we like spending, we like having a good time. We want to trigger dopamine in our brain. So whether it's this or that, you can spend it. But if you stick to that 10%, you know there's 10% going to your saving for your future, and 10% for investing as well, and 10% for the knowledge so you can keep leveling up. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, so just so we close, has anyone got any specific solutions that we could go away with or help that they want to add? So just keep it to a specific solution.
The solution that I'm saying, a man knows what they bring in inside the table. They know what they bring in. They manage the household. If you know you're going to make it or anyhow money you're going to do, make sure the person that you are with, they are in the same mindset as you, right? That's my solution. That's where it starts from, because we can lose it. We can have so much money or anything, but we can lose it. That's the fundamental side first. You can bring money in, but make sure that the person that you have is the same mindset as you, because that person, when you bring money in, if that person is not the same mindset as you, what will happen? They will take your money and spend it. So how are you going to move forward?
So make sure you've got a partner that is on the same wavelength as you.
I just want to summarize my point on solutions. I think it comes down to education. It's all down to education. At the start of this episode, I mentioned that there are principles to money. You got to understand how to make it. You got to understand how to keep it, and you got to understand how to use it. I think it's about that. That's the most important thing to start with that foundation in terms of teaching the generation below us. And I think Asai just mentioned in the chat that it's important to he's mentioned about understanding the credit agent references. So you've got Experian, you've got Equifax, you've got TransUnion. I think there needs to be education to the younger generation about those credit reference agencies and how they operate and what sort of effect they can have on the type of spending that you make going forwards. Stephen certainly made that point clear as well in terms of what he was saying in terms of like understanding that in terms of the public schools, you're taught how to be a worker and not someone who can create and establish wealth. And I think in order to understand how to establish wealth, you've got to understand how the system works. And so, yeah, it's education.
Just quickly, what I was just going to say, I think even Edward mentioned stuff there, and some has been mentioning some points there. When I started on this kind of trying to understand about my financial situation, there's a lot of people in this group that are used to help me. For instance, Edward sent me a spreadsheet that I had to then understand how much I'm spending, how much I could save in a month and stuff like that. I've been doing a lot of stuff with Asai regarding investing in stocks. Even at work, I've been investing in this whole partner stuff where, you put a bit of money and then you get that money at the end of the month and stuff. So I think it's just important. I think I'll strip it down to say from the beginning, just understand how much you can save, how much is coming in, how much is going out. And then a lot of these kind of credit agencies will be really useful as well. Osai?
The easiest way to make money is not spend it. Fundamentally, if a company wants to raise their profits, they reduce their expenditure. That's one thing. So anything you don't need to spend, stop spending it. Number two, the easiest way to make money is to make more, get paid more. I have always looked above me in terms of my next role and applied for it. I don't give a damn if I think I'm ready or not. I don't give a damn if you think I'm ready or not. I just need to prove to somebody in an hour's interview that I'm good enough. So my only advice to everyone is core. Think of that role that's in front of you, and by the end of this year, have applied for it so many times, you either got rejected or accepted. But always try to get to that next step relentlessly, no matter what people say to you.
I don't even need a minute. So let me just say, really quickly, it's just establishing discipline. So, I know it's really hard, but just whether it's education, whether it's the next job, all of these things, they're all underpinned by discipline. In all that you do, discipline is a key requirement. It's the secret sauce to everything you do. So if you know you're not disciplined in certain areas of your life, start working towards becoming more disciplined. And that's in all things in life, and you'll quickly find now you'll see the difference.
Yeah, that's it, Mo. Take it away, please.
All right. Yeah, no, thank you everyone for all your input today. Honestly, it's much appreciated, especially with the solutions at the end there. I do want everyone to at least go away with some of the things that were mentioned. I know Kevin mentioned in regards to your spending, looking at the 50%. I know Kojo mentioned about actually looking at how you're spending each month first. For me personally, I've got a cash flow spreadsheet that I've got on Excel, just honestly, just to see my cash flow and how I'm spending my money. A key thing one of my friends said is when you are planning those kind of things, especially pay yourself first before your debts or debtors or whoever. Pay yourself first within a budget that you can reasonably be disciplined towards, and then handle everything else. And the credit score knowledge thing I think is excellent as well. Understanding how things work, and then you can make things work better for you. But fundamentally, I do honestly feel educating ourselves. I love what Habib was saying in terms of the whole family, and how you may have parents that have invested or sacrificed and done that. But a lot of the time, the actual knowledge itself isn't really passed down, even though you might see it or might be aware of it. But without fully understanding it, there's no way of you actually applying it and implementing it yourself in your personal life. But yeah, this is the LDN Perspective. Honestly, thank you guys so much. We appreciate all your input. Please make comments, share. We've got our Twitter account, our YouTube. So if you do view anything as well, add it. If there's any websites or any books, I know there's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which a lot of people use. There's Dr. Cloyd Anderson that's got a lot of books out there, please.
The richest man in Babylon.
That's it, yeah. Please send all your books, any authors or anything, so that we can all acquire knowledge and we can all grow together. But yeah, thanks again. It's the LDN Perspective.
Perspectives, different views, one voice.